Make sure we've got,
Oh.
yep, there we go.
Okay, let's start that again. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us Monday, March 3rd for the African Burial Ground Memorial Park Committee. We'll go around and do just roll call. Please just state your name. Assistant Mayor Joe Kelly.
Darius Steele, Black Heritage Trail, New Hampshire.
Dave, you can do it.
Me? Okay. Dave DeFosis, Public Works.
Corin Hollowell, Parks and Cemeteries Foreman.
Susan Sterry.
Jemima Seabrook, Seacoast African American Cultural Center.
Ron Beasden.
Thank you.
Joyce Patterson, Seacoast African American Cultural Center.
Right.
Suzanne Woodland, Deputy City Manager, Regulatory Council, person of all trades.
First,
That's
that is the truth.
I do
Two,
everything.
John. Still got two.
Yes, and then online, if you can just state your name.
I don't know.
Gina Boger, Black Heritage Trail. And Dee Forte, Portsmouth Cemetery Committee.
Perfect. Next, I would look for, has everyone been able to look over the draft minutes from the January 27th, 2025? Those are sent out. Thank you so much. If there is no adjustment to those minutes, I would look for a motion to approve.
Make motion to approve the minutes, January
Perfect.
27th.
7th? Yes, 2025. Is there a second?
Second.
Perfect, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. The next, as everyone saw, we adjusted a little bit of our agenda. A couple things we had listed under other business, and we thought it would be better to kind of outline them more. One of the things we wanted to make sure we acknowledge was the passing of our former chairwoman, Vernice Jackson. I believe most people in this room knew her in some sort. We acknowledged her in November, actually, with the Vernice Jackson Day here in Portsmouth, so we'll be able to celebrate that anniversary annually. But we wanted to make sure we acknowledge that a huge part of this committee would not, we would not be in this room if it wasn't for her and her efforts, along with many others, to make sure the Memorial Park was established. So I just want to take a moment of silence in recognition of her passing. Okay, thank you, everyone. And next, we will move on to an update for DPW on the water main break repair.
Hi. Good afternoon.
Thank you.
And I got a couple more copies. I'm going to keep one. You guys can just pass that down. Maybe peek over our shoulders, and Corin and I can look on from this one.
Thank you.
So I'm sure most of you are aware that we relocated the cemetery in 2004 when we were doing our Court Street project. And as part of that work, once we knew where the burial ground was, we stopped the utility work at that time, kind of hoping and praying that the 2-inch galvanized steel water line would hold together for the foreseeable future. About 3 weeks ago, that line failed. We had to do an emergency dig. We had people out of water. So we brought in AIC to monitor construction while we did it. We put all the soil that we excavated back out was reinstalled so that nothing's missing. And that took place on this diagram, more or less. You can see the new blue line that I'm proposing, but the service line that goes over to 96 Chestnut Street, where those two services come off that old original 2-inch galvanized line, is where that break was. So they're supposed to just temporarily pave that tomorrow. We've been waiting for some warmer temperatures, so tomorrow's our day, hopefully, to get that done. We have a couple of people out sick, so we're hoping that it's going to happen tomorrow. In any event, the proposed repair that we have outlined here, we feel is probably the best possible alternative. We kind of stay away from the memorial itself, and kind of our proposal here is to is to install a new 2-inch copper water line up the brick sidewalk that's there now. Have IAC there with us when we're installing the water line to put the soil back in. Anything that's not ledge, anything that's soil, we would reinstall basically as part of the work. And then restore the brick sidewalk back the way it looks now. So that is the dark blue line that's on the plan is our proposed water line. It would be we would take it off. So we have a kind of like where you're looking at this diagram. It comes off of Court Street, and the 4-inch water line goes underneath the memorial a little bit. We would cut that, put a cap on it, and then go up the side of it like I'm showing here, and go under the sidewalk on Court Street, and then go under the sidewalk on Chestnut Street. It would be the plan. Does anybody have questions on that?
None of this would be inside the
Memorial.
memorial.
No.
None of it is inside the memorial.
No.
All of it's outside, and this one is next to the TD Bank ATM, right? On the left-hand side? That's the TD Bank ATM where you're going to install the proposed 2-inch.
Yeah, it goes on that side of the street where the Altus Engineering office is, and the I think it's a nail. Is that a nail salon?
Hair and nail.
It's like,
Fair now?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it goes as far as the bank, does it?
No,
No, it
doesn't.
No, it doesn't. So it would be under that sidewalk, basically, for those two houses. And we would endeavor to get that work done in April, and then do the restorative work for the sidewalk in May, so that we are done for Juneteenth. Would be our plan. I'm also working on getting the chip seal surface, the drivable surface, redone. I've located a vendor, Pioneer Chip Seal, that does high-end driveways and stuff for people, and we got a quote for them. I'm waiting for stone samples from him to match the color of the surface that's there and restore that. So we're also kind of working on that at the same time, and we would do that restoration again before Juneteenth. If we can get it done, we will. We won't. We'll make sure that everything's ready to go for Juneteenth is our plan.
Any other questions? Online, no.
So I'm sorry, on the chip seal service, we don't have any problems with matching the color?
I'm sure we can get close. So stone obviously varies in color, and even in the same quarry, stone that was in one spot of the quarry might be a little different color than the stone on the other side. So we're going to get samples from him and try to match it up the best we can, so that it's at least in the same hue and color palette. You know what I mean?
Okay, so, and hopefully it won't be that much of a difference you're talking
Right.
about?
But we'll redo the entire surface so that it's not going to look like a patch.
Okay.
No, I was going to say, I mean, there's no guarantee that it won't snap someplace else, so it's not even a question.
Yeah, no, the line is, the water line is had it. I mean, it has really had it. It looked like Swiss cheese when they dug it up. So this is not something that's optional, really. Wish I had better news for you, but I don't.
So let me just ask, just in case I'm not clear. So from the new dark blue line, which shows the new water infrastructure that you're going to be dropping in, then there's that, what looks like the existing line.
Yes.
Going to 96 from basically the middle of Chestnut Street to the residence.
Yep.
That is remaining the same?
That section is copper, so
Okay.
we suggest that that'll be fine.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
And 115 runs off from Court Street, so
Yes.
we don't have concern about that.
Right. It's really just 96 and 97 that we have to service.
Okay.
And we went inside the basement of 96. We know it's a copper line coming in, so it should be good for the foreseeable future. I mean, nothing lasts forever, but as water pipes go, the copper lines are the best ones we have, so.
Awesome. Well, thank you. One more time, any other questions? No, D. Okay. Just, as always, just keep us, if you can keep us updated, if we feel like there's going to be any unexpected delays happen, but if there's any vendor delays or anything like that, please just let us know so that we can make sure that we all stay up to date, especially the Black Heritage Trail and SAC and some of the organizations that will be doing Juneteenth and also celebrating the 10th anniversary of the park. Perfect. Thank
Okay.
you.
Okay.
And thanks to DPW, guys. I don't know if anyone in the city is unaware, there's been major water main issues, and these guys have been working literally day and night to get everyone and make sure everyone in our city has water. And so thank you, guys.
Okay. Thank you. Hope you have a nice afternoon.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Now get out of this building. Okay. And now an update on the restoration of the art elements.
So everything is, we received Daedalus' quote. They're scheduled. I will follow up sort of end of March just to make sure that everything's still good. I did get a verbal quote. The written quote should be coming this week, maybe tonight, from the tile person. He quoted around $6,500 to install and redo the Sankofa with the bits that Jerome is going to be sending back.
Yep.
I've sent a follow-up to Jerome just to check in to see how he's doing. If he has enough tile, I haven't heard back, but I expect to hear from him. I just emailed him this morning, so I expect I'll hear from him this week. So right now, everything's on track. Dave's on the water break and the road, so I think we'll be looking pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any questions about the art element repair? Okay. I feel like we've talked a lot of this out the last few months, so I feel personally comfortable.
I'll keep you updated. I'm just going to wait till the end of March just to sort of
Yeah.
put a bug in ears again, just to make sure they know we're here.
We're still waiting. We're here. Okay, and on to the next item, the Dinah Chase Whipple Monument.
Yep. So we can collectively report that we are making progress on the monument. The order has been submitted, so we are optimistic that we will have a monument in time for the selected date, which is June 13th at 1 p.m.
I think that's what we said, yeah.
to celebrate
1 p.m.? Okay.
to celebrate the installation of that monument, and we'll kind of coordinate amongst the stakeholders to talk about how we get the notice out there and get some community connection to this event and some education around what this means.
And again, thank you. Just want to publicly acknowledge the Daughters of the American, right there?
Colonial
Colonial,
Dames.
sorry, the Dames, not the Dares.
Colonial
The Dames.
Dames.
The
Yep.
Colonial Dames for helping fund this monument, and and also thanks to Sue and Corin. Yes.
And I just need to add to that list, we have 5 people who donated originally, and I have their names and addresses so we can contact them that made contributions online back at the very beginning. And we also, I invited, or I put them on notice, the Appledore Marine Engineering, who run the Dinah Whipple STEM program out of UNH. We just received the $1,000 check that hopefully completed how much money we need altogether. And right after I spoke to those people and invited, put it on your calendar for June 13th, I received an email from UNH, and the woman who runs the program up there with the STEM kids wanted to know if it was possible if some of the STEM kids could come, and I said absolutely, and that I would be in contact to give her the final dates and times for that. They were welcome.
Who that was?
No, I can send you her name.
Probably Carmela.
Okay, that's,
Oh, yes,
that's what I thought it was
Camilla.
Camilla.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's who it was,
It's
Camilla.
an excellent program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, she
Had
was,
them at BIPOC Fest in the van, or the trail.
yeah, she was really excited to have the kids there, so more the merrier.
Who's the other one? The African. The Jimmy into me is has stepped back a little bit. She just had a baby, so the other lead is his name is King James. I can't remember his last name, and I think the Black Engineer Corps are going to take over the running of that program this summer going forward. So Carmela will be able to share all that information.
Right. So, and I told her I would, get back to her as soon as everything was, committed to what was going on that day. So,
Oh, that would be so exciting.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sue, for that update.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Okay. Moving on to item 7. We're really flying through this. An update on the Lafayette Road burial site.
So for those of you who didn't catch the news in the newspaper, there is some pending litigation which related to title issues at the Lafayette Road site. And so it'll probably be a little while before we see any action on development of that site and the opportunities that will arise to kind of work to make sure that all elements of that site are maintained, and how we talk about access to that site. And so just know if you don't hear much on it for a little while, it's because there's some pending litigation that slowed down the project, and of course that means the submittals slow down as well, because as you may recall, the City of Portsmouth has conditions in the
Yes.
approval process which call for protection of those sites. So stay tuned, but if it's slow, it's because of forces outside of our control. So.
Thank you so much. Okay, so on to number 8. At our last meeting, we went over the proposed updated mission. And so I would just look to get our final kind of thumbs up if we're all okay with, we did vote on it, but this is the actual language, because we had a couple
Edits.
minor edits.
Yeah. So the edits are in that first sentence, which if I've captured everything correctly, which is why it's here again for you to read. It says the committee is dedicated to preserving and honoring the final resting places of peoples of African descent, enslaved, formerly enslaved, and free, period. So that's what I thought I heard from the last meeting, but I am not, if there's better language or I didn't capture it correctly, I will not be in any way offended. So feel free to continue to provide input.
And I'll just open kind of the floor for conversation. So if anyone feels that this did capture, that's great. If anyone feels like that did not capture what we kind of ended with, this would be the time to raise any concerns. Okay. Did we take a vote? We did take the vote.
I was trying to remember. Did we take a vote? We might have.
feel like
Well,
it was
hold on.
in
I
the-
have minutes here. So
I was going to say it was in the minutes that I.
that could be.
I don't remember seeing a vote.
Yeah.
Hold
I don't
on.
either.
Hold on. That, and we still have to discuss.
Or maybe we agreed to change the, like, when we were
I know
going
we
back and
talked
forth
about
with the
it.
language. So we'll make a,
It says an updated version will be presented
Okay.
at the next meeting, which would be this one. So there we go. I think there are two additional pieces to this updating of the mission, which is, do we then want to recommend updating the name of the committee, since if it's going to be broader than just the one Memorial Park that we have now. So I threw in just some potential names so you'd have something to respond to. And then we need to talk about process, which is kind of a couple of options. One is take our recommendations to change the mission and any potential name change to the city council for its formal
Codification.
adoption. Can't imagine why there would be any objection to updating the mission or the name if that's what you so choose. So that's option one. Option two is, because this is a blue ribbon committee, there could be a discussion about whether to make this a standing committee, which requires an ordinance change, but that's not difficult to do. It just means that the legal department works with the committee to develop the ordinance, which establishes the committee, and then it becomes, something that the city council would then approve through 3 readings. The only kind of fly in the ointment in that is that typically our committees that are standing committees consist of mostly Portsmouth residents. This one's a little differently configured, but we do have some other committees that similarly have representatives from various entities. So I think that is just something to be aware of, and why in some ways it's a little easier as a blue ribbon committee than a standing committee, but it can be done, and it really depends on preferences. I also, as a practical matter, the blue ribbon committees, the mayor's blue ribbon committees, get readopted every 2 years, every time there's a new city council. And since I don't think anyone's going to particularly object to our continuing to discuss the Lafayette burial site as conditions and opportunities, arise, you could just wait, once you've kind of got this all sort of set, wait until January of next year, and when it goes for adoption before the new council, because there's an election this year in November, just make sure that the mayor has the latest updated mission and name change if that's where you want to go. So there are some options, and
thank you.
really is up to what you all would like to do.
So just kind of going through those things for conversation. The proposed updated mission, are we, as a committee, just kind of a straw vote, feel comfortable with the updated language of the mission statement?
I like it.
Great. I like it too. I feel like it took bits of kind of what we were saying, and still has the heart. And again, adding in the Public Art Review Committee and working with them in the Cemetery Committee. Okay. Now, and we don't have to decide this today, and I would say that Suzanne did a really great job of pulling kind of together these 3 names. But I would ask the committee to think about these 3 names or any other names, including the current iteration of what our committee is called, for maybe the next meeting to really start discussing if we would like to change the name, as we again look at trying to make sure we can expand or do expand past just the Memorial Park for any future locations. Yes, Sue.
In coordination with the proposed update mission, which includes community engagement, my thought is African Ancestral Sites Preservation and Education Committee, because it ties in more than, as you said, the memorial site. It also opens the door to all the sites that are in the various historical cemeteries that we already have. So I think that's a good name or representation of what's in the mission statement.
Yeah, I agree. And I know we've talked a bunch about trying to figure out ways to tie in this committee, as you've said, as you've done such an amazing job marking out so many resting places, of figuring out ways to make sure that we're also honoring the people of African descent buried in all of our other sites. So I really like that. But again, up for discussion, no vote would be happening today, for everyone to kind of think on if what they feel kind of the next natural step would be for this committee.
Susan, what would be required for a vote, just to make sure, so like next time we'll know if we wanted to vote, what would be needed? Like, how many people is a quorum?
Quorum on this committee is
5, I
four,
think.
I think.
4.
I will check, yeah.
Okay.
I know I always have to check the number. I
4 to 5.
Should write that
Okay.
down.
Yeah, I think it's 4 or 5.
Okay.
I want to say it's
I know we wrote it in such a way to make it easier to reach quorum, so
Right.
that's why I'm thinking it might actually be the lower number. See if I put it on my notes. Yes.
And again, to go over what Susan said, we would vote on this, and essentially a motion would say to present to the council to vote on it.
To the city council.
Yes, yep, so we would decide what our suggestion would be, or ask would be, and then we would present it to the city council. Hello. We would present it to the city council. Again, the two options are, if this is something that we decide in the next meeting, like we 100% are good, which we have decided with the mission statement, and we have found a name we like, and we do not want to wait until January, that is okay. I can bring it forward under my name. And because it is a mayor's blue ribbon committee, again, it doesn't take as many readings and ordinance changes. Again, one of the perks of being a mayor blue ribbon committee, it's slightly easier to change all of these things. We don't have to refer. I would make the motion not to have it referred back to governance and like that, so we would just go through strictly the council. And we could do that if we decided as soon as May. It could be end of April, early May could be brought forward, or again, if the committee felt like, hey, we're not in a super big rush or we're not too sure, we could wait until after May and or, as Suzanne recommended, January, when we adopt all of the committees. Yes.
The other thing I thought of when we were talking about the education part, that also covers all these different groups that are here.
Yeah.
So it would also let members start going down that trail. How can my organization, can we do a webinar or whatever you want to do to educate the community? So that's another reason to vote for that.
I agree. Well, I think going off kind of what you've said, and we've talked about like the Black Heritage Trail and SAC and other organizations, like, again, I think unifying the front-facing, community-facing organizations that go through, that utilize the park, that help preserve the park, that use it as an educational tool in our community. Is there any other discussion of any other names on this list or anything anyone can think of, or we just want to add this to our agenda for next month to kind of see if there's any more submissions and potentially vote?
I say we potentially vote next meeting.
Okay,
I like it.
perfect. We'll roll that onto that agenda.
What I'll do is, if we're relatively comfortable, I will put this document that I've circulated, which is
Yep.
the mission as written, along with the 3 options, unless you want me to just put the one option for names, and I'll actually put it in the agenda packet.
Okay.
So that everyone will have it handy, can have that,
Perfect.
extra think
Yes.
about, does this work?
Yes, and if anyone thinks of any other type of name that they would like to submit, feel free to email Suzanne or myself prior to the next meeting, and we can share that with the group so that it can be active in that discussion. And if nobody does it, then we vote on kind of these wordsmiths. I'm not a good wordsmith. Okay.
Barbara, can I just make a suggestion that you keep all 3 names in the
Yep.
packet?
Yeah,
Happy to.
Thank you.
I agree, Ron. Okay. And then I will go back to Suzanne for the planning of, we had discussed at the last few meetings, actually, trying to host an event either really at the library to discuss leading up to the 10-year anniversary and to Juneteenth of the Memorial Park, kind of get the community re-engaged, ideally getting some fundraising opportunities re-engaged, and just reminding the community, and especially trying to encourage the descendant community at large to be part of it as we discuss other research options, curation, and things like that. Suzanne and I actually went down to the library and reserved a day. We kind of played with a bunch of days, but we, and I'll let Suzanne touch on this, we were talking to UNH about trying to get Megan in, who has spoke to, she is a PhD at UNH, who has spoke to the committee, Megan Howe, right? Howie, who had come in a couple years ago. But I will hand it over to Suzanne to finish.
So we have a date in mind that we've floated to the professor, head of the department at UNH, and still waiting to hear back whether that date will work. So I don't want to float that date out yet until we see whether that works for the professor who could come in and talk about all the research opportunities. But it was a date in early April. And if that date doesn't work, we're going to try and find one. And I think what we were looking at was a 2-hour block of time in the evening to hopefully make it easier for the community to come together, particularly if they're traveling, a little bit farther away than outside Portsmouth, because we're looking at getting, a broader sense of the descendant community, particularly if we're going to talk about research opportunities and curation. So that's where we really need the descendant community voices. And so we thought an evening would work better. So we were looking 6 to 8 in the evening, block of 2 hours, and then kind of a program bringing out the history and the opportunities or not, depending on how the community would like to move forward. So I'll leave it there. It's up to you if you want to talk more in detail or kind of wait.
How does the committee feel? Do we want to dive into some of the little details, or do we want to wait until we have more of a understanding of what Professor Howie in that department at UNH could be involved? We'd kind of gone through a mock-up of the things that we would discuss, so
Could cover it. It's really up to you whether you want to or not.
how do we feel as a...
Let's hear it.
Okay. I can hand it up. Oh, you start.
Those keep them for me. So, in anticipation that sometime, probably in April, we'll be getting together, I took a first stab at outlining what I thought the evening should cover.
Thank you.
And we're assuming that there would be interactive components in this meeting. So when you see, like I said, and I'm not wedded to this, I'm just trying to figure out logically what I think we'd want to share based on, being involved in public meetings in the past. So a quick overview of the discovery of the site, or rediscovery, really, since certainly there was an understanding that it was probably there. The initial findings at the site, so just the basic information that Kathleen Wheeler has provided to this, committee before, Kathleen Wheeler being the archaeologist who was on site and has well documented what she found during the course of the work, the remains that were removed until completion of the infrastructure work, then review the research conducted really shortly after the discovery. So there were, about a year or two of what was found in terms of understanding the nature of the burial site. Then we can talk about, that there was a consensus, at the time as we were leading up to the development of the park and the reinterment of the remains to hold back, particularly some of the teeth, for potential further study in the future. We can talk about the professor who came from, and I forgot to grab her name
Midwest
again.
University.
Yeah, from a university in the Midwest who really talked about, there may be an opportunity to do more testing, but really there's also that opportunity to tell more of the story, and that may be a path that the community would prefer to follow, which is work more on the storytelling and understanding the community versus testing of the remains that are left. So I think there should be some conversation and about that, and I've been thinking about, is there someone we could reach out to whether she would either Zoom in again to kind of provide that piece, or whether we could have someone else pick up that piece, but I thought that was valuable component of the conversation. And then really our friends at UNH, Megan and Amy, I know worked with us last time, Amy Michaels from UNH as well, could review the current research options. And this is something I had handed out information, probably 4 months ago, just kind of providing some of the history, but we'd review it with the public and the community, what those options are. And then really break it down into the questions to be answered, which is, should there be any additional research undertaken at this time? And if not now, when? Does this want to be revisited? And there may be other questions. So I wanted to, that was part of what I thought would be useful to discuss tonight. What are the questions that we would want input on from the community? And then talk about curation, because if we're going to retain these, the few teeth and remains that are not interred right now, we have some choices to make about how we retain those and the conditions under which we retain them. And also hear back, are there any concerns about that? So that was my quick first cut, so that everyone would have a chance to kind of think about it. So that we get whatever event we pull together, has
A flow.
has a flow and the information that the community wants. Because I've been sitting in these meetings, so for me, but I think, how do we explain where we are and where we've been and where we want to go? So.
Is it a matter of testing versus finding the histories? You spoke as if there was a choice of doing one or the other. It's not possible to do both?
You can do both, yes. Yes.
Why would we not want to do both?
Well, I think my understanding is what the conversation was happening is that we have a limited amount of materials, and so one of the conversations was some of these testing, and again, my understanding also is that there hasn't been great advances in non-destructive testing in the last 10 years. And so there's a little bit of the conversation of, do we more so right now, in my view, it is kind of a choice between one of the other of, if we do any more destructive testing now, we'll have nothing to test in the future. Or do we maybe tell the story more now and then look when testing options have advanced in a few years? I know one of the things we've talked about in this group and wanting to get more community input is setting timelines for revisiting testing. So maybe it's not we're revisiting every year, but we decide within this committee and the outside world, the other people in our community, of saying maybe, hey, we look back at testing every 4 years to see what advances have been made, or every 3 years. That was just my takeaway, was instead of doing, because the majority, again, of this testing is destructive testing, and we only have a limited amount in curation with Kathleen Wheeler, who was the archaeologist who was first on this and has been very great with the city in dealing with this. So that's just my understanding, is that.
That's clear.
The only thing I was going to add to that was, you said exactly what Amy Michaels said, that most of it's still pretty destructive, but there are a few non-invasive ones or destructive ones that could give you like a general diagnostic of maybe what part or what was not, or bioproteins and things like that that could give you ideas of locations and things like that. But as far as the destructive, there's nothing new in the world.
So it's not likely that we would find out anything from further destruction that hasn't been discovered, since no technology
Right.
has developed, no new information, no new science has developed.
That's what she implied, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I understand. I mean, I would want to get as much information as possible, you know. And we have people who are current with the science and will continue or plan to continue to remain so. We can certainly follow their lead if there's something new that develops, especially if there's something that develops that is not destructive to the remains that we have. The selection of the telling of the story seems to be more complex to me and more elusive.
I understand what you're saying. It's going to be complex and elusive, but if we went with the scientific route, to me that seems pretty finite. So I would probably me personally, I would probably rather go with the difficult, elusive route.
I agree.
And still have the opportunity
I absolutely
to go to scientific route.
I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you. I think difficult and elusive is also very satisfying.
Yeah, could be when you get it done.
Yeah, yeah.
Could be, right.
I do a lot of research for all our cemeteries, and I mean researching individuals so that we can put together a story of who's buried here. So there isn't such a disconnection between, oh, William Whipple, but if you tell a story about William Whipple and then you go see the actual site where he's buried, it makes it more real, I think, and more educating to people. In this case, my sense is like having the dates from Kathleen of when these remains were dated, to do research on what, like in Valerie's book, actually, that who were the people that lived during this time? Because it didn't matter, I don't think, from what I've read quite a bit, that it didn't matter who you were a slave to or if you were free or what have you. But there are lots of stories out there about the people that lived here during that time. So you could do a story of perhaps in these 200 people, you know, so-and-so lived and may be buried here. But you get an overall picture of what life was like for African Americans in that time frame. So if you can't give the real, you can give a perspective of who and what it was like to live here at that point in time.
Well, and I think it's a good point because I was one of these, and I think there's a lot of people in our community who view this as just a memorial to enslaved peoples. Obviously, but we also know through history that there is a high likelihood that freed, as we know, freed or formerly enslaved people were also buried in this memorial park. And so, again, I think it does give us a chance to tell the story that this, as we've seen back on maps dating to the 1800s, was the Black Burial Ground. So it does much to kind of what the Black Heritage Trail is doing with their VR, their virtual reality initiative, not project, I don't know why I said initiative, at the site, you know, telling of stories of Black and African descended people in this community from that timeline.
I like the idea of telling the story educationally, because I think it's really important for us to reach the kids in school.
Yeah.
They need to have more of a truer information about who these people are, rather than what's generalized from a classroom teacher's perspective.
Yeah.
And I think it makes it more meaningful for our students to hold on to, and to not only become inquisitive, but maybe interested in going beyond just what's being said.
Yeah.
but inquisitive enough to be critically thinking about asking those important questions that help not only their growth, but maybe also looking at the research that they can do on their own.
Yeah. And I mean, as Sue said, and through Value's book and some of the research that was done originally and the testing, like, we have a good baseline knowledge of, those who were buried there in the sense of timeline. And we know through history that we can research what, again, life was like. The likelihood that we ever maybe find a direct descendant, we're not sure. But we do know that other sites in the community, like Dinah Whipple, we can find, and there have been found direct descendants. So if we, you know what I mean, kind of take that purview. Suzanne?
Just as a reminder for those who were not part of the committee previously, the committee did make an attempt to try to see if through the pulverized remains from the very first effort to identify, what type of remains we had, because we did get those back.
Yep.
We did send those off to a company named Othram to see if they could extract any DNA from that already disturbed remains, and they could not. But if they had been able to extract any DNA, the intention was to then look through particular databases to see if there were a match for any descendants, to kind of take what's learned from that DNA and see what does that further tell us. And it may tell us there's a descendant, an actual descendant somewhere. And that again informs the story,
Right.
because now you've got more. So just so you know, the committee did in the past, that was like 3-4 years ago, tried to work with something that was all the parts that were already disturbed and had already been tested to see if that could change. Now, whether in 10 years, whether the technology will change such that even that section that they can't get any, usable DNA now, whether that will change in 10 years, so that I don't know. But there was that effort made. Of course, teeth are a different part of the body, and one would have to see whether, what was still viable. But that's why this conversation still kind of sits out there. But it does lead to then destruction, at least in part, if you're trying to find DNA. So, but the anthropologists and the archaeologists, the scientists, yes, could talk more about that whole process and pros, cons, opportunities, how the technology is changing.
I just always rejoice when someone of African descent in America learns something of their origins. It just, makes me happy to know that someone is finding out that information that has been lost to so many of us, and to most of us for most of our lives, if we have any of it now. So it's just always very valuable. I mean, it's just so worthwhile, anything we can find out. I'm not a descendant, I don't think I am, from anyone in Portsmouth, but I just rejoice just to hear about this. It's wonderful information I have for anybody. And it's American information. It tells the story of Americans who were enslaved and prevailed. And that should give us all great cause for celebration, I think.
Great. Okay, so to kind of wrap up that discussion point, we will hopefully hear from Professor Howie in the next few weeks to see if we can confirm that date. So we'll kind of keep a rolling date, and then if she's unavailable for that event, we'll kind of play by her calendar and try to figure out going forward. But we will keep the committee updated when we have more information. Okay. Moving on to other business. Self-explanatory. Does anyone have any other business they'd like to discuss with the committee? Okay.
Do we have another date for the next meeting?
Yes, because we switched it this.
Yeah, we were doing, I just want to make sure, and I didn't know if it looks like we're going to have an event in
April.
do we want a placeholder of a tentative meeting
Yeah.
date to just plan it? It doesn't necessarily need all of us, but it's really up to you.
So I'm
So
trying
let's
to-
see when our next one, oh, wait, I see, oh no, that's our placeholder. Were we doing the third weekend?
We were doing the 3rd, and then last month,
Yeah, I messed it up.
no,
Because I
you did
wasn't
not
there.
mess it up. It was fine. So we moved. So do we want to move back to the 3rd, or do we want to?
In which case, that's April 21st?
Yes. Or we also have a council meeting on April 7th.
Yep, this is a council meeting. I mean, that means you and I are likely to be here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's an earlier one because it's a budget hearing.
You have to pack your lunch.
Yeah, we do it often. So does the 21st work for everyone, or is there a preference between the 21st or the 7th? I guess would be what I would put out to the committee.
If there was a choice, I would say the 21st.
Okay. If anyone online, Gina, Dee, okay.
That's good. Okay.
So then we will schedule that for the 21st. So that will either serve as a recap to the if we were able to do an April community engagement session,
Yep.
or a more intense planning of it. Okay. Seeing nobody from the public, I think this is the first time we've had no
That's true.
public here.
Well, and since the first time I've gotten to one of these meetings, maybe I should at least introduce myself.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm Bob Thompson. I'm currently president of the Seacoast NAACP. And I was also the founding chair of the Black Heritage Trail.
Yes.
And I'm a resident of Exeter.
Yes.
I've lived in this area for over 30 years.
Yeah.
Good.
I was a minister of Phillips Exeter for about 32 of those years.
Yeah. Perfect. Well, you have joined us on Zoom several times.
Have I joined on Zoom?
You have.
Well, as you see, I retired, so
Have joined
no
on Zoom
excuses
several
or
times.
anything. But first time I've been here in person, and for some reason it didn't occur to me that conference room A would of course be in City Hall. I went to the library.
Yes.
I would have been late anyway, but I wouldn't.
Ron, did you? Oh, good.
Oh, good.
Okay, great. If there's nothing else, then I would make a motion to adjourn, or look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second, all in favor. Great. Thank you guys all so
Come
much.
late, but